Coming up on Arirang News. As Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu vows to make Iran pay for its hundreds of missile launches towards Israel, fears of an all-out regional war are at their peak. South Korea's consumer prices slowed to the lowest level in 3.5 years in September, rising 1.6% on-year. But concerns linger, given the Middle East crisis could make petroleum product prices unstable. Asia's largest in scale, the 29th Busan International Film Festival kicked off its journey today with an opening film from a streaming platform for the first time. We give you a peek from Busan. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. We begin with a looming regional war in the Middle East. Iran launched a massive attack on Israel, firing almost 200 ballistic missiles at the country. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns Iran will pay for the attack. Shin Ha-young brings the latest.
Fears of an all-out war in the Middle East intensified on Tuesday local time after Iran launched around 180 ballistic missiles at Israel. This comes 5 months after its previous missile and drone attack. Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps said the attack was conducted in retaliation for the killing of the leaders of Hezbollah and Hamas and a top Iranian general in recent Israeli strikes. Those leaders included Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah and deputy Hamas chief Saleh al-Aruri. Iranians took to the streets of Tehran the same day to celebrate Iran firing the missiles at Israel.
I'm very happy that we got our revenge. We should have done it sooner. Now the main element is Netanyahu.
While the IRGC said 90% of its missiles successfully hit Israeli military and security targets, Israel Defense Forces said they intercepted many of them with the U.S. help and only a few injuries were reported. Following the attack, Israel vowed retaliation.
Iran made a big mistake tonight, and it will pay for it. We will keep to the rule we have determined. Whoever attacks us, we attack them.
Iran said it won't launch further attacks if Israel doesn't retaliate, while the IRGC warned it would repeat its attacks and target Israel's infrastructure if Israel responds to strikes.
If the Zionist regime wants to do anything against our sovereignty and territorial integrity, tonight's operation will be repeated several times stronger, and all their infrastructure will be targeted.
Meanwhile, AP reported that Israeli strikes killed at least 32 people in southern Gaza overnight as the military launched ground operations in the hard-hit city of Han Yunis. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
U.S. President Joe Biden has slammed Iran's air assault against Israel as he promised full support for Tel Aviv. In the meantime, there are growing calls for a swift ceasefire. Lee Seung-jae has more.
U.S. President Joe Biden strongly condemned Iran's missile attacks on Israel, warning that Tehran would face severe consequences for its actions. He also stressed that Iran's attacks were ineffective and vowed full support for Israel.
At my direction, the United States military actively supported the defense of Israel, and we're still assessing the impact. But based on what we know now, the attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective.
The U.S. leader also said that discussions are going on over Israel's response to the attacks, adding that he would soon be speaking with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the issue. The European Union was also quick to condemn the attacks while calling for an immediate ceasefire in the region. Taking to his social media on Tuesday, EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said the dangerous cycle of attack and retaliation risks are spiraling out of control. Former President Donald Trump, on the other hand, took the opportunity to slam the Biden administration, claiming that the world is on fire and that the U.S. leadership is absent. Referring to himself in the third person, he said that under President Trump, there was no war in the Middle East. And with Israeli troops advancing into Lebanon and Iran launching its massive missile attack on Israel, global oil prices soared on Tuesday. The price of Brent crude futures for December on the ICE Futures Exchange rose nearly 4% on the day to trade at nearly $74.50 per barrel, while West Texas Intermediate futures for December also rose nearly 4% to close at over $70 a barrel. Wall Street fell on the news of escalating tensions in the Middle East, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average down 0.41% from the previous trading session, while the S&P 500 closed nearly 1% lower. Both the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 indexes enjoyed new all-time highs on Monday, but retreated due to the increasing tensions in the Middle East and concerns over a surge in oil prices. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In response to escalating tensions in the Middle East, President Yoon has ordered a military transport aircraft to be sent to the region to evacuate South Korean nationals in the wake of the latest clashes between Israel and Hezbollah. The announcement came on Wednesday after Yoon hosted a related emergency meeting with his top security and economic aides. Yoon stressed the most important task was ensuring the safety of South Koreans in the region. Currently, there are around 130 in Lebanon. At the meeting, the president also ordered that a 24-hour monitoring system be set up for the uncertain situation. He also emphasized the need for an analysis and review of potential impacts and risk factors that could affect the country's economy and security, such as energy supply, export-import logistics, and supply chain disruptions. Shifting gears, North Korea is allegedly preparing to revoke a historic agreement with the South, a move that could once again escalate tensions on the peninsula. The Inter-Korean Basic Agreement, signed over 30 years ago, has long been a key document in maintaining peace and cooperation between the two Koreas. Our correspondent Kim Jung-sil explains.
Seoul has expressed concerns over Pyongyang potentially amending its constitution at its upcoming Supreme People's Assembly on October 7th, including possibly ending the 33-year-old Inter-Korean Basic Agreement. A senior official from the Ministry of Unification said Wednesday that proposed amendments, including changes to maritime border regulations and the regime's leader Kim Jong-un's determination to remove terms such as peace for reunification, could lead to the nullification of the Basic Agreement. The agreement, signed in 1991, has been a cornerstone of inter-Korean relations, defining them as a temporary special relationship aimed at reunification. This contrasts with Kim's recent directives, with Pyongyang already having annulled an economic agreement with South Korea in February. The Unification Ministry official noted North Korea's increasingly hostile stance toward the South could lead to further organizational changes within its Ministry of Foreign Affairs. These changes may also be part of the North's efforts to devise new strategies in response to the upcoming U.S. presidential election. The official added that Seoul is also monitoring whether the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Treaty signed between Moscow and Pyongyang in June will be ratified at the Supreme People's Assembly. The official noted the potential for rising tensions on the Korean peninsula as North Korea appears to be institutionalizing hostile relations against the South. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
South Korea has signed a deal to buy hundreds of military-use drones from Poland, the same type of weapons that were actually used in the Ukraine war. This appears to be part of the country's efforts to counter evolving threats from North Korea after the regime recently unveiled its suicide drones. Our correspondent Bae Eun-ji explains more.
A drone falls from the sky and destroys a tank. This is a still image North Korea released in August, saying that it had tested its so-called suicide drones. The regime's leader, Kim Jong-un, oversaw the test, as drones took off and destroyed test targets, including a mock tank. The North state media said Kim urged researchers to develop artificial intelligence for unmanned vehicles.
He emphasized that we must actively adopt technology and equip the Korean People's Army units with these technologies as soon as possible.
To respond to these threats, South Korea on Wednesday announced that it has signed a deal with Poland to buy the country's war-made drones. Developed by WB Electronics, war-made loitering munitions are equipped with a high-explosive warhead, can remain airborne for up to 70 minutes, and fly at a maximum speed of up to 150 kilometers per hour when carrying out an attack. War-made drones have actually been used in the Ukraine war, as they were provided by Poland to help destroy Russian armored vehicles. A South Korean Defense Ministry official explained that the military and relevant authorities have thoroughly checked the drone's capabilities, adding that the quality has already been verified through their use in the Ukraine war. The Defense Ministry did not elaborate further on the deal, but it will reportedly involve the purchase of around 200, worth more than $10 million. They will be sent to South Korea starting next month and will be deployed to combat units before the end of this year. Also on Wednesday, South Korea's Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun met Poland's Vice Defense Minister and agreed to closely communicate to continue defense and arms cooperation. Since the start of the Ukraine war, Poland has bought a number of South Korean weapons systems, including K-9 howitzers, K-2 tanks, F-850 fighters, and Tomu multiple rocket launch systems. As drones continue to change modern warfare, both Koreas are working to prepare for future conflicts. 배은지, Arirang News.
In Japan, new Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba spoke over the phone today with his U.S. and South Korean counterparts. Our Yoon explains what this new leadership could mean for the country's neighbors and allies.
Shigeru Ishiba triumphed in what was his fifth attempt to become Japan's prime minister. The Japanese parliament officially elected Ishiba on Tuesday, succeeding Fumio Kishida to become the country's 102nd prime minister. The 67-year-old veteran politician and former defense minister detailed his policies at a press conference later that day, warning that the security environment surrounding Japan is the most severe since the end of World War II.
Through diplomacy in light of realistic national interests, we will build on the U.S.-Japan alliance and expand connections with like-minded countries. By enhancing both diplomatic and defense capabilities, we will maintain peace in the country and stability in the region.
The new Prime Minister of Japan said that he told U.S. President Joe Biden on the phone early Wednesday his plans to reinforce Kishida's defense and diplomatic policies while enhancing cooperation with South Korea and other like-minded nations. He also highlighted his proposal of a more balanced relationship with the U.S. and to create an Asian version of NATO to deter China. On the same day, Ishiba spoke with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, promising to meet soon. President Yoon Suk-yeol and new Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba agreed to continue top-level shuttle diplomacy to improve Seoul-Tokyo ties upon the 60th anniversary of normalizing bilateral relations. The leaders also discussed enhancing cooperation between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan to address issues related to North Korea. During the press conference, Ishiba also mentioned that the purpose of high-level meetings must be clear from the start for effective diplomacy. He stressed that different countries have different national interests, and that what truly matters is how seriously each nation engages in discussions and the outcomes they achieve. Shigeru Ishiba took over from Fumio Kishida, who stepped down to allow for new leadership amid ongoing scandals in his administration. Japan's new prime minister promised that he and his cabinet would prioritize fiscal policies to combat deflation while quickly introducing measures to assist households from rising prices and to regain the public's trust. Yoon, Arirang News.
The leaders of China and Russia exchanged congratulatory messages today on the 75th anniversary of their diplomatic relations, both emphasizing the importance of expanding cooperation. According to Chinese news agency Xinhua, Chinese President Xi Jinping expressed his readiness to expand all-round pragmatic cooperation between the two countries. Russian President Vladimir Putin noted in his message to Xi that their relationship has reached its highest level in history. He also called for further strengthening the bilateral comprehensive strategic partnership to promote security and stability across Eurasia and beyond. Consumer prices noted a substantial slowdown in September, which recorded the lowest in well over 3 years. But the prices of vegetables saw a sharp rise. Lee Soo-jin covers this latest finding.
Inflation in South Korea slowed to the lowest level in more than 3.5 years during September. Data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday showed that the country's consumer price index, a key gauge of inflation, rose 1.6% compared to the same month the previous year. This is the smallest rise seen since the 1.4% recorded in February 2021, and is also the first time since March 2021 that the index has been below 2%. And this year, the increase in consumer prices first fell below the 3% level in April, and while there was still an uptick in July, it fell to 2% in August. The slowing of inflation last month was mainly driven by prices of petroleum products dropping 7.6% on year, falling for the first time since February. But with global crude oil prices surging more than 2% on Tuesday local time in the aftermath of Iran firing ballistic missiles at Israel in response to Israel targeting Iran's allies, petroleum product prices may once again become unstable.
Based on the current inflation trends, agricultural products, particularly vegetables, are affected by weather conditions. Petroleum products, which are heavily influenced by international oil prices, may also fluctuate.
Prices of agricultural, livestock, and fisheries products were up 2.3% in September compared to the year before, with vegetables in particular seeing a sharp rise, jumping 11.5% on year and 18.6% on month. The on-month increase for vegetables was the largest seen since August 2020. Amid the prolonged heat wave, prices of Napa cabbages were up more than 50% and radishes around 40%. Both are key ingredients of kimchi, one of the most important staples of Korean cuisine. The core CPI, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, dropped 2% on year and 0.2% on month in September. With inflation cooling to the 1% range in September, it is further setting the stage for an interest rate cut in the next policy meeting scheduled for October 11th. 이수진, Arirang News.
In line with the latest inflation index, tangible efforts have been unveiled to encourage domestic demand. Speaking at an economic ministerial meeting on this Wednesday, Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok said the government will open up its reserves of cabbage and extend tariff quotas for certain products, including a number of imported fruits. With regard to the decline in demand for electric vehicles, he spoke of additional support measures, such as the early implementation of the battery certification system and the expansion of corporate liability insurance. Also, families with many children wishing to buy EVs will be offered greater subsidies. Foreign direct investment in South Korea reached an all-time high for the first to third quarters of the year. The Ministry of Trade announced on Wednesday that foreign investment increased by 5.2% compared to the same period last year, reaching over $25 billion. By sector, investments in the manufacturing industry rose by over 36%, with significant growth in areas such as electronics and machinery. By country, Japan saw an increase of over 412%, making it the highest ever, with China following in second. In other news, President Yoon has vetoed the 3 bills that were passed unilaterally by opposition lawmakers last month. 2 of them urged for special probes, one into the death of a Marine and the other into alleged stock manipulation by First Lady Kim Gun-hee. The third bill calls for one-time cash handouts for all Koreans. The presidential veto on this Wednesday follows a related cabinet recommendation back on Monday. Now, this is the third time that the president has vetoed the special probe bill into the Marine's death, and the second time he has vetoed the probe bill against the First Lady. A plenary session of the parliament will take place as early as Friday in response to the latest presidential rejection, and if 200 out of the 300 lawmakers support the bills, they will override the presidential veto. On the cultural front, the annual Busan International Film Festival, Asia's largest in scale, started its 10-day run today. For a closer look at opening night, our culture correspondent Song Yijin reports from Busan.
It's that time of the year when cinema lights up South Korea's southern port city of Busan. The annual Busan International Film Festival began on Wednesday with the opening ceremony at the Busan Cinema Center, with actors, directors, and producers gracing the red carpet. This year, 278 films will be screened over 10 days, including side events. Of those, 224 films from 63 countries are part of the official selection, up 15 films from last year. So this year's Busan International Film Festival, in a key word or phrase, could be described as mainstream appeal. And that's because when compared to previous editions, this year's BIF is focused on expanding its reach beyond cinephiles to engage a broader audience. For the first time in the festival's history, a streaming original, Netflix's Uprising, was selected as the opening film. The action drama starring Kang Dong-won and Park Jung-min, with Cannes-winning filmmaker Park Chan-wook as producer and scriptwriter, is set to premiere on the platform next Friday.
I'm so happy our film was chosen as the opening film and to be back at the festival after so long. I have a lot of fight scenes with other characters and worked hard to express various emotions.
RM Right People Wrong Place, a documentary showing BTS member RM's journey of making his solo album, will make its world premiere here. Another standout feature is how several of the films that'll be showcased have already been recognized at prestigious international film festivals, such as Grand Tour by Portuguese filmmaker Miguel Gomez, who was named Best Director at this year's Cannes Film Festival. The opportunity to enjoy a diverse range of films is an exciting experience for the audience, particularly for those with an interest in or connection to the film industry.
My impression is that the Busan International Film Festival has a pretty solid reputation and is up there with some of the film festivals that get the most traction culturally. I'm so excited to see a film that my friends produced, and it's a film that takes place here in South Korea and Jeju Island.
I am majoring in film production, and I hope someday the movie I film could be screened at the Busan International Film Festival.
Those interested can reserve tickets on the festival's official website or on site. 송유진, 아리랑 뉴스, 부산.
As temperatures dropped overnight, many places recorded their lowest temperatures this fall this morning. In Seoul, the temperature was 11.6 degrees, which was 9 degrees lower than yesterday. Tomorrow, it will continue to be colder than usual, so you should take care of your health. Tomorrow, it will rain all over the country except Seoul and northern Gyeonggi-do province. Rain will mainly fall in the Chungcheong-do provinces in the morning and will expand to the southern Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do province in the afternoon. It will mostly stop at night, but rain will continue until Friday dawn in Jeollanam-do, Gyeongsang-do provinces and on Jeju Island. Tomorrow, Busan and Jeju will start off at 18 degrees. Highs will move up to 21 in Seoul, Busan and Jeju. There's a possibility that the rain clouds left by the typhoon will move near the Korean peninsula and affect it after the weekend. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for today. Thank you for watching. Tomorrow is Gaecheonjeol, also known as National Foundation Day, and so we will be back with our noon edition of Arirang News. Until then, goodbye.